slavery is something that I do not find to be immoral. Is there really a
Fucking piece of shit. Just utter piece of shit. I get if this was the 1800s where they were raping kids and stuff like that, and they didn't have the advanced moral system that we have, but for this guy, like in the modern age, to say that, just utter piece of shit. Just utter douchebag.
fundamental difference between wage labor and slave labor?
Yes, there is. I mean, wage labor. I mean, if you're bagging groceries, there's a difference between bagging groceries and freaking working on the field and worried that you will get raped at night. Like, there's a difference between that. Did he say that? There's a difference? And just utterly really retarded.
Is there a difference between owning someone versus renting someone?
Yes, there is. I mean, you're not renting someone, you're renting their work. You're not fucking renting somebody. Like, I cannot, like, hey, I rent you now. Now I can rape you. You know, just, there's an utter difference between, just having a low wage work that anybody could do and just utterly owning somebody. Like, come on, you can't confuse the two. Are you that retarded? Like, did your religion poison you to the point where you don't know the difference?
Renting someone is worse because think about the difference between owning a car and renting a car.
So we're literally comparing a person to an actual object. And this don't even make any sense. Like, fucking. I mean, if your car crashes into somebody, you don't sue the car or you put somebody to jail. Just like, it just doesn't make any fucking sense to me. What? Like, compared to that, like, I guess, do you want, like, the car to go to jail if the car does, like, a crime? Like, killing somebody? Like, I don't know how it does. Maybe back in slavery days, if your slave did a crime, like kill somebody, maybe they would punish the slave and the master. But this is utterly retarded. Like, is this guy really serious? Like, there's so much difference between a human and a car. It's absolutely ridiculous that he actually brung this up. Oh yeah, and by the way, if you rent a car and you actually you have to return it back to your master. So, wow, if you own a person, or you even rent a person, you don't return the person back to its master or its owner when you rent a person. Just utterly retarded.
You rent a car, you drive it, in a very abusive kind of way, as opposed to
No, who the fuck rents a car and you drive it in an abusive kind of way? I would think that you would drive it safely since you have to return it back, and you don't have the money to buy it, so you would buy it. Who the hell is this guy? Like, I wouldn't want to rent a car from this guy. You drive a car in an abusive type of way because you're renting it? Is this guy retarded?
Owning it where that's your investment, you care about it. Anyway, that's something that's uncomfortable.
And one, I would assume that if you're renting out like a slave, or in this guy's retarded mind, a person who's working for a wage, I would assume that you would not abuse the person because you don't own the person. Like, this is utterly retarded.
For people who are raised in the West, the legal concepts underlying slavery exist within the employer-employee contract.
No. I mean, you can quit your job. You can't quit slavery, you fucking idiot. You can't just be like, slavery is too hard, man. I mean, last night, master raped me too hard. I think I'm gonna quit.
Wage labor. In many cultures, there's not really a difference between saying that person A, like Ridvan, owns George. Okay, that's a slave relationship. Ridvan owns George. There's not really a difference between that and saying that George has a contractual obligation to Ridvan. Capitalism.
Yes, there is. I mean, if you're if your wage employee doesn't have sex with you, the employee could sue you. You're not obligated to like your employee's not obligated to have sex with you unless you rent out a prostitute. But still, then you can't rape a prostitute. So this is so utterly retarded in so many ways. It's just boggling my mind.
Is really fundamentally no different than slavery.
How can you combine the idea that slavery is okay in Islam with the idea that Islam strives for eventual human happiness, and Islam would still continue slavery in today's time if it wasn't for international human rights laws and forces and laws pushed by the West? It is an undeniable fact that in Islam a slave is still a slave, and a slave is basically, in Muhammad's own words, still owned by a Muslim and used by a Muslim. This includes labor slaves and slave girls with which a Muslim can have non-consensual sex with, for example.
Rape.
You cannot possibly compare that.
Why didn't he just say rape?
To a Western system, to a Western capitalist system, for example, in which a person works for years.
My employer didn't drop the fries and make them crispy enough. Now I can whip him. That's basically the false equivalency. He's saying
He can also do with his own life whatever he wants. He can choose a job, choose this job, choose that job, be self-employed, go to a different country and choose a job there, have their own home, have whatever home they want, have whatever rights they want, and be completely equal in front of the law. How can you say that an Islamic society with slaves is more for eventual human happiness than a Western society, for example, where someone can choose where they want to work and can do with their lives whatever they want? That was the entire point of the question.
Like the whole point that I was making is that there isn't a fundamental difference between the logic of being a wage worker and being a slave. And I cited.
Yes, there is. A slave have to work from sun up to sundown, usually 6 days a week, or sometimes 7 if like your owner's an atheist. If your owner's like a Christian, I think you would get like a Sunday off. But this is so utterly retarded. I mean, what's the equivalency of a slave getting overtime? Freaking extra grits in your pot that you share with 20 other people? Like, this is so utterly retarded. This white Sharia guy is just, oh my gosh, just so freaking stupid. Oh my gosh.
David Graeber, or I can cite other anthropologists and historians.
Yeah, we don't need to cite studies in order to see which one is.
No matter what study he cites, he will never explain to me how an employer could rape its employee, like legally. Like a master could rape its slave. An employer cannot legally rape his employee, even if the employee is a prostitute. You can't even do that. Employer can't physically abuse their employee without getting in major trouble. That's one of the main differences between wage labor and slave labor. You moron.
I should be like you and not cite anything. And just
It is ridiculous.
Cite common sense. He's citing common sense.
To cite arguments to find out whether.
And why are you objecting to me citing evidence? Listen to the point.
Because the question is very simple. You don't need to cite an argument to figure out whether you will be happy going to a school or you will be happy living in a basement. You don't need to cite a study to find out if you will be happy in a one-room house or in a 5-room house.
Look, I ridiculous thing the reality of happiness in the West, the institutionalization from birth and
very simple question.
And it involves slavery.
I mean, you could work up the ranks if you're in a low-wage job. Ideally, most low-wage jobs are held by teenagers still living in their mother's house. Like, I was like 15, 16, 14 when I got my first low-wage job. It was pretty awesome. But, oh my gosh, this is incredibly stupid. The things people will go to like freaking defend Islam, a 6th century religion. This is absolute cancer, poison. And you can see the Islamic book in the background. But this is absolutely gross and disgusting. Yeah.
Slavery by another name.
Very simple question.
I wonder, is the employee raping the employer like rape by another name, like just utterly just cancerous.